She looks like a stray dog up there. The words were whispered, casual and cruel, slicing through the air like a knife. But what broke Lauren wasn't just the comment itself, it was the reaction beside her. Her husband, Jake, let out a soft, smug laugh. Not nervous. Not uncertain. The kind of laugh people make when they're proud of their insult. Then, just loud enough for others to hear, he added, "She's just like her mother. Useless." The laughter that followed, some quiet, some awkward, seemed to echo inside Lauren's ribcage like a drum. She sat frozen, second row center in the crowded school auditorium, the crinkled event program trembling in her hands. Her face burned. Her ears buzzed. And all she could think was, they said that. Out loud. In public. To her left sat Jake, the man she'd once loved fiercely. He'd been charming once, the kind of man who made people laugh and meant every compliment. But over the years, his charm had turned into cold sarcasm, his warmth replaced with dismissive sighs and cutting remarks. And to her right, like a statue dipped in judgment, was his mother, Elaine. The woman had never liked Lauren, never wanted Jake to marry her, and never missed a chance to show it. Elaine hadn't even tried to hide her sneer when she'd whispered that cruel line about Mia. Her lips barely moved, but her words sliced through Lauren like glass. And Lauren? She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. She sat there, fists curling in her lap, gripping the glossy paper so hard it crumpled beneath her fingers. Up on stage, bathed in the two bright lights, stood Mia. 8 years old. Quiet. Sensitive. The kind of kid who cried over stepped-on dandelions and built bug hotels out of shoeboxes. Her daughter, her whole heart. She wore her favorite pink sweater and jeans with silver stars sewn into the sides. Her shoes didn't match. Her hair had a mind of its own. Lauren thought she looked perfect. But apparently, to her husband and his mother, she looked like a stray dog. Mia hadn't started singing yet. She stood frozen on stage, clutching the microphone, her little shoulders stiff. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching. For someone. For her. Lauren prayed she hadn't heard the whisper. God, please, let her not have heard. And then, Mia stepped forward. Her voice wasn't a song. Not yet. It was something else. Braver. "I want to thank the person who saved me," she said into the mic. The room stilled. Lauren forgot how to breathe. Mia lifted her arm, and pointed. Directly at her. Gasps rippled. A few people turned to look. And Lauren? She was crying before she even realized. Silent tears streaming down her face, hot and heavy with emotion. She stared back at her daughter, their eyes locked across the auditorium. Steady. Clear. Full of courage. Jake shifted beside her, suddenly uncomfortable. Elaine crossed her arms and exhaled loudly like someone had spilled milk. Lauren didn't look away. Not this time. It was only a week earlier that Mia had approached her, tugging nervously at her shirt while Lauren folded laundry on the couch. "Mom?" she'd whispered. Lauren looked up, already knowing this was one of those moments. The kind you don't forget. "If I try out for the talent show, would you come?" She'd knelt to Mia's level, hands on her shoulders. "Mia, you could recite the alphabet backwards or juggle oranges, and I'd still be in the front row cheering you on." That crooked smile, small, soft, hopeful, had bloomed on Mia's face. The kind of smile that felt like a gift. That was her girl. Gentle and brave in the quietest of ways. And here they were now. Lauren had known Mia was nervous. That morning she'd barely touched her pancakes. She just picked at them, pushing chocolate chips around the plate. "I'm scared," she'd whispered. Lauren had sat beside her, rubbing circles on her back. "Being scared means you care. And caring is brave. What if I mess up?" "You won't," Lauren said, trying to sound certain. "But even if you do, I'll be the one clapping the loudest." In the car, Elaine had complained about traffic, Mia's outfit, the school decorations. Jake had nodded, sighed. Not once had he turned around to comfort his daughter. Mia had hummed to herself in the back seat, holding her lyrics like a lifeline. Now she stood on that stage, having pointed at her mother with pride. And Lauren? She was crumbling on the inside. Not from shame, but from the overwhelming power of being seen. Jake leaned over again, muttering from the side of his mouth, "You're making this about you." Lauren blinked at him. Her cheeks were flushed. Her throat dry. "Making it about me?" she said, under her breath. "My daughter just called me her hero, and you," she couldn't finish the sentence. Because Mia had started singing. Her voice was soft. Shaky. Sweet. The kind of voice you leaned into, Not because it was loud, but because it was real. It felt like sunlight trying to break through clouds. Like hope whispering its way out. Lauren wanted to be lost in that voice. To soak in every word. But she couldn't. Not with Elaine clicking her tongue every few seconds. Not with the people behind them whispering words like off-key and awkward. And suddenly Lauren wasn't in the school auditorium anymore. She was in the kitchen 4 years ago, reading Jake a story she'd written. She had poured her heart into it. Her hands had trembled. Her voice had shaken. And when she finished, he had sipped his beer and said, "It's fine." But who'd actually read this stuff? That same chill. That same dismissal. Now it was happening to Mia. Lauren sat there, silent, jaw clenched. She hated herself for not speaking up. For letting them, Jake, Elaine, the others, have that kind of power. But Mia kept singing. And with each verse, something in her changed. Her shoulders lifted. Her voice steadied. Her eyes stopped searching, they began owning the room. She wasn't performing anymore. She was claiming space. And Lauren? She felt the fire in her chest begin to roar. This couldn't continue. Not another day. Not another moment. Not another stolen breath. Something inside her cracked wide open. When the song ended, there was a beat of silence. Then applause. Scattered at first. Then building. Parents standing. Some even smiling. Lauren stood, clapping with everything she had. Not out of politeness, but from the deepest, proudest part of her soul. Jake gave a lazy, reluctant to-clap. Elaine didn't clap at all. And Lauren? She had never felt more certain of anything in her life. The applause slowly faded, but Lauren could still hear it echoing in her chest, louder than any voice of doubt that had haunted her over the years. Mia had done it. She'd stood on that stage, small and vulnerable, and declared her truth with more bravery than Lauren had managed in a decade. And yet, beside her, Jake didn't shift. Didn't smile. Didn't clap with anything resembling pride. He sat like a statue, arms crossed, expression stony. Elaine was still on her phone, scrolling like nothing important had happened, as if her granddaughter hadn't just bared her soul in front of 100 strangers. Lauren leaned slightly toward Jake, her voice low but steady. "She heard you, you know. You and your mother." Jake didn't look at her. "Don't start," he muttered. But Lauren was already past starting. She was done. "No," she said louder now, the fire rising in her throat. "You started. Years ago. Every time you told her she was too sensitive. Every time you told me I was too soft. This moment? This is what that does to a child." People were looking now. The parents nearby. The teachers. Maybe even the principal up front. Lauren didn't care. Let them see. Let them hear. She was done shrinking. Mia had left the stage by then, walking quietly back toward her class lineup, but she turned once. Just for a moment. Her eyes met Lauren's again, and there was something there, something different. Relief. She knew. She knew her mother was fighting for her now. Without thinking, Lauren stood. Her legs moved before her mind caught up. She stepped into the aisle and walked past Jake and Elaine, past the rows of parents still whispering. A volunteer tried to stop her at the backstage door. "Ma'am, parents aren't allowed back here right now," she said gently. Lauren met her eyes. "I need to tell my daughter something." The woman hesitated, then stepped aside. She found Mia sitting cross-legged on the floor, a small bottle of water in one hand and her lyric sheet folded neatly in the other. Her cheeks were still pink from performing. Her eyes lit up when she saw her mom. "Was I okay?" she asked softly. Lauren knelt down and cupped her daughter's face in her hands. "You were more than okay," she whispered. "You were brave and honest and beautiful. And I heard every word." Mia smiled, a wide, toothy grin that Lauren hadn't seen in far too long. The kind of smile kids wear when they know they've made someone proud. Lauren pulled her in, hugged her tight. Her voice trembled when she said, "I've been quiet for too long, but not anymore. I won't let anyone make you feel small again. Especially not in your own family." Mia's arms tightened around her neck. That warmth, that closeness, it was more than comfort. It was confirmation. They were what mattered. Lauren didn't go back to her seat. She stood by the side wall of the auditorium, hidden behind a row of folding chairs. From her angle, she could still see Jake and Elaine. They hadn't moved. Jake checked his watch. Elaine was filing her nails. Filing her nails. As if her granddaughter hadn't just poured her heart out on stage. As if none of this mattered. Lauren watched them and felt something shift again. They weren't just dismissive. They were deliberately blind. Willfully ignorant. They chose not to see Mia's beauty, her courage, her strength, because it didn't fit into their narrow, perfectionist mold. And for years, Lauren had twisted herself into that mold too. She'd softened her edges. Bitten her tongue. Apologized for being too much, or not enough. Not out of love. Out of survival. The assembly wrapped up. The school principal stepped forward and began thanking the children. Parents clapped. Kids giggled. Backpacks unzipped. Teachers called out names. The room filled with motion and noise. But Lauren stayed still. Jake turned to look for her, eyes scanning until they found her across the room. He gave her a questioning look. She didn't blink. Didn't smile. Just watched. She wasn't afraid anymore. When the assembly ended, Lauren met Mia outside her classroom. The kids were being released one by one, and as soon as Mia saw her, she ran. No hesitation. She wrapped her small, warm hand into her mother's like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then came Jake, with Elaine gliding behind him like she was too regal to be in a public school hallway. Jake looked at Lauren like she was some problem he hadn't solved yet. "We should head out," he said flatly. "Traffic's going to be hell." Lauren looked down at Mia, then back at him. "No," she said simply. "You two can go. Mia and I are staying." Elaine scoffed, sharp and shrill. "Don't be dramatic, Lauren." This time, Lauren turned and looked her directly in the eye. "You called my daughter a stray dog. You mocked her. In front of strangers. In front of me. You don't get to tell me what's dramatic anymore." Jake's face hardened. "You're making a scene." "No," Lauren replied, her voice calm and clear. "I'm making a boundary." The hallway was buzzing, but Lauren didn't notice. All she could see was her daughter, still clutching her hand. All she could feel was that fire still burning, hot and righteous, in her chest. "You both crossed a line today," she said. "And I let you for far too long. But that ends now." Mia looked up at her. "Are we okay, Mom?" Lauren dropped to one knee. "We're better than okay," she said. "You showed me what courage looks like. Now it's my turn." She stood, turned back to Jake and Elaine. "If protecting my daughter makes me dramatic, then fine. I'll be dramatic. I'd rather be dramatic than disappear." Jake opened his mouth, but no words came. For once, he had nothing clever to say. Without another glance, Lauren turned and walked away, Mia's hand still in hers. They didn't go straight home. Instead, they walked to a park down the street. Bought 2 melting ice cream cones from a vendor cart. Sat on a bench under a tree, shoes off, toes in the grass. Mia laughed when chocolate dripped on her shirt. Lauren didn't care. That day didn't end with trophies or ribbons. But it ended with truth. And sometimes, that's more powerful. It had been 4 months since the night Mia stood on stage and pointed to Lauren, calling her the person who saved her. 4 months since Lauren walked out of that auditorium with her daughter's hand wrapped tightly in hers, leaving behind the cold silence of her husband Jake and the sharp-edged sneers of his mother Elaine. A lot had changed since then. Not in the loud, dramatic way movies tend to portray change. There were no grand gestures or sudden transformations. But in the small, quiet corners of their life, things shifted. Lauren began to hear herself again. And Mia? Mia began to bloom. It started with small things. Lauren pulled an old journal out of the drawer one night. A spiral notebook with bent corners and faded ink. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the blank page for a long time before finally writing her first sentence in years. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even particularly profound. But it was hers. Each night, after Mia went to bed, Lauren would return to the kitchen and write. Some nights she only scribbled a paragraph. Others, she wrote until her hand cramped. Sometimes it was messy. Other times it was raw. But it was always honest. She also started therapy. It was awkward at first. Vulnerability had always felt dangerous, especially in a home where every feeling was dissected and dismissed. But Lauren kept going. Week after week. 1 hour at a time, she peeled back layers she hadn't even realized she was still carrying: guilt, shame, fear, and love. So much love. Meanwhile, Mia was changing too. There was a brightness to her now. A confidence that hadn't been there before. She sang louder around the house, made jokes, asked questions. One day she came home from school and asked, "Mom, can we make music together?" Lauren had blinked at her, surprised. "Like, actually play something?" Mia nodded. "You told me you used to play piano. I want to learn too." So Lauren had dug out her old keyboard from the back of the hall closet, dusted it off, and plugged it in. The keys stuck a little, and it was badly out of tune, but when Mia pressed her fingers down and the first notes chimed out, something inside Lauren stirred. They sat side by side for an hour, playing, laughing, singing off key. It wasn't perfect. It was better. Jake, meanwhile, was still living in the house, but it no longer felt like his house. Not emotionally. Not energetically. Lauren had started drawing boundaries that had never existed before. She no longer waited for him to make decisions. She no longer apologized for speaking her mind. She no longer explained herself when she chose to spend a Saturday writing instead of managing the grocery list. She opened a savings account in her name. She applied for a part-time job at the local bookstore. She even reconnected with a friend from an old writing workshop. When she sent a hesitant email, the reply came within minutes. "Where have you been? Let's catch up." And Elaine? She hadn't shown her face since the talent show. She'd left one voicemail a few days later, pretending nothing had happened. Lauren never called her back. Sometimes silence is a boundary. And for Lauren, it felt like peace. One evening, Lauren stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing dishes, the sound of Mia's humming drifting down the hallway. She paused, hands wet, and looked out the window into the backyard. The sun was setting, casting orange and lavender light across the trees. Something about it made her chest ache, but not in a painful way. More like a longing. "I'm still here," she thought. "And for the first time, I'm finally living." That weekend, Mia came home with a permission slip for a field trip to a science museum. Lauren signed it, then sat with her at the table while Mia explained every exhibit she was excited to see. Her eyes lit up, hands flailing as she mimed a space launch. Lauren didn't interrupt. She didn't rush her. She listened. Then Mia grew quiet for a moment and said, "Grandma Elaine doesn't like me, does she?" Lauren blinked. "No, sweetie," she said gently. "She doesn't understand you. That's different. And it's not your fault." "Is that why she said I looked like a dog?" Lauren's stomach twisted, but she nodded slowly. "Yes. And that was wrong. Some people are unkind because they haven't learned how to be anything else." Mia looked thoughtful, then shrugged. "I don't think I want to see her again." Lauren placed her hand over Mia's. "You don't have to. Not unless you want to. You get to choose who's in your life." That night, Mia slept easier than she had in weeks. Friday nights had become sacred in their house. A new ritual. Pajamas, hot chocolate, and old movies under a blanket too big for the couch. Right before the film started, Lauren would ask the same question. "What's something brave you did this week?" Sometimes Mia said things like, "I told a boy at school to stop making fun of my glasses." Other times, it was, "I tried broccoli and didn't spit it out." Lauren would always smile and say, "That's my girl." But one Friday, Mia turned the question back on her. "What about you, Mom? What was your brave thing?" Lauren paused. Then she said, "I told someone they can't speak to me that way anymore. Even if they love me. Even if they're family." Mia grinned. "That is brave." Lauren's chest swelled with pride. Because here's the thing no one tells you about motherhood: sometimes, the most important thing you can do is let your child see you, messy, flawed, learning. Not perfect, but real. And sometimes, you don't need to have all the answers. You just need to stand tall when they look up at you. That weekend, Lauren found herself staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror longer than usual. She didn't look particularly different. Same tired eyes. Same messy bun. But something in her posture had shifted. She stood straighter now. And it wasn't because anyone told her to. It was because she chose to. The following Monday, Lauren walked into the bookstore to ask about the part-time position she'd applied for. The manager, a woman named Tessa with turquoise glasses and a kind smile, greeted her warmly. "We got your resume," she said. "Loved your cover letter. Are you still interested?" Lauren smiled. "I am. Can you start next week?" Just like that, Lauren took another step forward. The first day at the bookstore felt like breathing fresh air after years in the windowless room. Lauren stood behind the counter, adjusting the name tag pinned to her sweater. Her hands shook a little, not out of fear, but excitement. Rows of worn paperbacks stretched across the wooden shelves. The scent of old stories, ink, and quiet filled her lungs. "First day nerves?" Tessa asked, appearing with a clipboard. "A little," Lauren admitted. Tessa smiled. "You'll find your rhythm. Just remember, people don't come here looking for perfect, They come looking for connection. Lauren let the words settle. She had spent too many years chasing the perfect dinner, the perfect smile, the perfect silence. But now? She was done performing. She was building something real. The bookstore became a sanctuary. In between organizing titles and helping customers, Lauren found moments to breathe, reflect, and feel useful again, on her own terms. When she returned home in the evenings, Mia would ask, "How many books did you touch today?" Like it was some magical scorecard. And to Mia, it was magic. One evening after dinner, Lauren and Mia lay on the couch tangled in blankets and giggles. "Mom," Mia whispered, "do you think people can change?" Lauren looked at her daughter, those wide, curious eyes. "I think people can," she said carefully. "But they have to want to. And they have to work at it. Do you think Dad wants to?" That question hung in the air like fog. Lauren sighed. "I don't know, baby. I think some people want the benefits of change without the work. And that's not really change." Mia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I hope one day he sees you the way I do." Lauren blinked back tears. "Me too." But she no longer needed it. Jake had changed little, if at all. Since Lauren's shift, he'd grown more passive-aggressive. No more overt jabs, but 1,000 little cuts, a scoff at her schedule, a comment about the type of people who work in bookstores, a snide look when she and Mia laughed too loudly over cereal. It didn't break her. It didn't even dent her. Instead, Lauren took notes. She began documenting his behavior. She met with a lawyer. She opened another savings account, this one separate from the shared account she and Jake had kept for a decade. She didn't tell him yet. Not out of fear, but because she was waiting for the right moment. The moment when she no longer needed to explain herself, but could simply act. Meanwhile, Elaine had sent birthday gifts for Mia, a sweater with the tag still on and a children's etiquette book, of all things. No note. No apology. Lauren put the book in the donation pile and tucked the sweater away in a drawer Mia never opened. On a rainy Saturday, Lauren sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open. Mia was nearby, painting rainbows on construction paper. Lauren hesitated for a moment before opening an email from her old writing group. They'd invited her to submit something for a community anthology. She clicked reply before she could lose her nerve. 2 weeks later. Lauren read her own story aloud at a small cafe downtown. The room was full of strangers sipping lattes, heads tilted, eyes fixed on her as she spoke about a woman who forgot her own voice, then found it again in her daughter's bravery. She didn't shake. She didn't stammer. When the last sentence left her lips, the silence in the room was heavy and full. And then came the applause. Not roaring. Not explosive. But real. Afterward, an older woman approached her. "That story. It felt like you wrote it for me." Lauren smiled. "I kind of did." 1 month later. Lauren told Jake she wanted a separation. He stared at her, unmoving, like a man trying to convince himself the words were a joke. "I don't get it," he said finally. "What did I do that was so awful?" Lauren didn't flinch. "You treated me like wallpaper. And you taught our daughter to see herself through your eyes. But I see her now. I see me." Jake opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "You're ruining this family over some emotional nonsense." "I'm saving it," Lauren said, voice calm. "Just not the version you wanted to keep." He left the house 3 days later. No dramatic exit. No slammed doors. Just a quiet departure in a silence that felt like freedom. Mia asked if she could repaint her room. Lauren said yes. They bought 3 paint samples and spent a weekend turning the walls into a blend of sky blue and mint green. Mia added gold stars to the ceiling with a sponge and a steady hand. "This feels like a new planet," she said proudly. "It is," Lauren replied. "One we get to build together." 3 months later. Lauren sat on the front porch, feet curled beneath her, a mug of tea in her hands. Mia was inside, FaceTiming a friend and showing off her new keyboard. Laughter echoed through the window. Elaine had called twice. Left voicemails. Still no apology. Just small talk and guilt-drenched pleas. Lauren didn't call back. Sometimes, love meant closing a door, and not reopening it. She'd learned to grieve the mother-in-law she wished Elaine could have been. But she no longer chased her approval. That power had dissolved the day Lauren chose her daughter's voice over someone else's expectations. She looked out at the street, quiet, sunlit, and still. For the first time in her adult life, Lauren wasn't waiting for something to crash. She wasn't holding her breath, bracing for the next cold remark or emotional ambush. She was still. And safe. And whole. The last Friday of summer. They made hot chocolate, climbed into pajamas, and pulled the giant blanket over them. Lauren asked their ritual question. "What's something brave you did this week?" Mia grinned. "I invited a new girl to sit with me at lunch." Lauren raised her eyebrows. "Nice." She was quiet. "Like I used to be," Mia added. "I think she just needed someone to see her." Lauren's chest filled with something deep and warm. "That's my girl." Then Mia looked up at her. "Your turn, Mom." Lauren took a breath. "I signed up for a writing class. In person. Starts next week." Mia gasped. "That's amazing." "I'm nervous," Lauren admitted. "Good," Mia said. "That means you care." Lauren laughed. "Where'd you learn that?" "You," Mia said simply. They pressed play on the movie. As the screen glowed, Lauren looked at her daughter's face, relaxed, joyful, unburdened. She thought back to that night at the talent show. The way Mia had stood on stage, voice shaking, and said the words that cracked their world open, "I want to thank the person who saved me." Back then, Lauren hadn't believed she deserved that title. But now? Now she understood. Saving someone doesn't always mean pulling them out of the fire. Sometimes it means walking through it with them. Hand in hand. Softly. Bravely. And in doing so, you end up saving yourself too.